Hey. Oh la la. This is like crazy, isn't it? So listen, what I'm thinking is let's I'm going to ask you that question again because I think it's a really, really interesting one. And then what I'd like to do really is ask you about what you're how you're working with people and what your offer is, because I'm aware that your time is kind of, coming up now. And we'll get to your offer and because we've talked quite technically a little bit, which is
You mean the, the the free gift, right?
yeah.
The
So
the,
I'm,
the
I'm
free
gonna
gift.
yeah, I'm gonna ask you the question again about being a parent, because it's really interesting, and how you're going about your life now with the work that you're doing, etc. And then I'll refer to the work that you're doing with everyone and ask you what your gift is, and then we'll go on to your final last words to everyone. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Fingers crossed this time. Um, so I'm just going to make a tiny acknowledgement, but I don't even know. She may even be able to cut that out because I'll just go straight back to that question again. So, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry we had another little technical glitch there. Christina, I'm interested to know as a mum now how you've got two children and how the work that you're doing, are you very open with the boys about that, and how does that kind of come into your life? Because obviously as they get a little bit older, they're going to be aware of what you're doing. I'm curious to know your feelings now being a mum with what you've been through with being a child.
Yeah. So, great question. So I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they know what I do, but we don't talk about the inner workings. They just know that I work with women. But I've been really open with them about their bodies and about their genitals and about sex. I've already had that conversation with them. There are a ton of amazing books out there that you can begin to read to your children when they're only toddlers, so that they really understand their body and their reproductive organs. And studies show that when the younger children are, when you talk to them about their bodies, their sex, their sexual organs and sex, the less likely they are to actually be manipulated and abused. And actually, if something like that does happen, the more likely they are to tell you sooner. Maybe just after the first experience, or, not going on for years and years and experiencing shame because they have now associated shame with sexuality and with their bodies. So my 8-year-old, we talked about sex when he was about 6 years old. And so he knows all about the inner workings of sex. And I just feel like that is it's so important, because if you can talk to your children about sex before they learn about it on the school playground, and before some other kind of like shame or awkward situation happens, you're going to have that conversation, and they're not going to say, oh, I don't want to talk to you about this. They're just, I mean, my son was like, oh, okay, and to make it normal, because this is a normal and beautiful and actually really, really important and central part of our experience as humans. And so the earlier we can have a really open and honest and just normal conversation about sex and sexuality, the more normalized and healthy your child's sexuality will blossom and grow.
Wow, that's great advice. Really great advice, Christina. And I think, yeah, it's empowering them, isn't it? It's giving them that information that yeah, that especially not to feel shameful. And I love that. I have two kids, so I'm definitely going to do that. And especially for Ava. I mean, she's almost 10, and she's kind of, her little boobs are coming, and she's aware of her body now, and it's so important. And I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's really powerful, actually, especially for us
And
parents who find it a little bit difficult, to talk about it. And
yeah,
it's important.
I'd actually like to add one thing to that, if I could.
Yeah.
So my 7-year-old, when we were talking about sex one day, because he said the word sexy, and he said, "Oh, that's a bad word," and so the conversation started. And he said, well, relationship with a woman and you decide, or man, and you decide that this is what you want to do, and you both think that this is the time for you to do it, that's when you do it. You do it when you both want to, when you both want to express that experience together. And he asked, well, why, like, why do you do it? And I was like, because it feels really good. When you really love somebody and you've decided that you both want good. So to actually talk to children about pleasure, the real part of sexuality, because so much of the sex that we have is not just to have a baby. And yet so many people are only talking about with their children and not talking about pleasure and not talking about connection. And so I've already started that conversation with my children, and I think that is so important.
Right. Wow. That's great. Would you mind just repeating, you mentioned, we just missed the very, very beginning when you said that your son had mentioned that the word sexy, and then he thought it was a bad word. Was it just then that you went on then to explain to him that it's okay and it's good to feel sexy? I think that's exactly what you were saying. We just missed a few seconds. Yeah.
So yeah, he said something about sexy, or I think the word was said in a song, and he's like, that's a bad word. And I was like, well, that's not a bad word. So he'd heard that on the playground, something that was a bad word. And so then he asked me, what is sexy? And I talked about sexy is when you are full of energy and you're radiant and somebody is attracted to you. We talked about magnets, right? So sexy is a really appealing energy that attracts other people. And so we talked about that, and then we moved into how sexy was connected to the word sex, and we had already talked about sex. So, just really allowing yourself to be in the moment and being able to have that conversation about sex be really normal with your children has been a blessing to this level of work and becoming a mother. And I'm really grateful.
Yeah, wow. Well, you're doing a great job. Amazing. It's so lovely to listen to you. So listen, tell us how people, I understand you have a special offer for the people watching today. And you mentioned also, tell us a little bit about that. And also you mentioned usually what you start off working with someone for 6 months. Is that kind of standard, or do you do some group work? And tell us how you work with people in general.
Yeah, so I have not been doing group work yet. It's something that I'm ruminating and sitting with. But right now, I work one-on-one with women to really intimately support them and their specific needs. But there is, you can't, I'm just not doing it yet. So the gift that I'm offering today is actually a 3-part training. And that is about permission, because so often women need to give themselves the permission to do this kind of work in their lives, and to make themselves important. And it's like giving yourself permission over and over and over again. So I have a 3-part training that is about how to liberate your sexual energy, give yourself permission, and actually some tools and strategies to really create more sexual pleasure, like actually specific tools. And I'm also offering a free one-on-one session with me, a free pleasure mapping session where we can really get down to what is holding you back. And there's only a few of those available. I've only opened up my calendar for a little bit. So if you're interested in talking to me and having a free session, definitely go grab that right away, because they will definitely fill up. So wow. I'm so excited to be able to offer that today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's really generous. Amazing, amazing gift. And we're going to make sure that they have all of that information on the page today, so they can click through and be able to reach out to you and sign up to your amazing blog, etc. So that's really amazing. Final last words. Do you have any final words of encouragement to anyone? Obviously, our audience, it's going to be varied audience, but the topic is people that may have suffered from a sexual trauma and some kind of a childhood trauma, what would, if they are, we're coming towards the end of the series as well now, so they've seen a lot of interviews and possibly connected or not yet with a lot of people. I'm curious to see what your final words of advice are if they're still not ready to kind of reach out or feeling strong enough to do that. They obviously have a little bit of time to reach out to you now, but what would be your final words in terms of making that important?
You know, that if you feel the calling to do work on yourself, listen to it. Listen to it over and over and over again, because I talk to women, you know, all the time who are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they say that they wish that they had just done this work earlier. And so don't stop yourself. And that it takes time, and to be really, really gentle with yourself, and don't expect that you're just going to change and overnight, and that new things come, and to really be willing to be on this journey, and that you possibility is limitless, that you absolutely can heal from anything that you have experienced, and you can have the life that you deserve and that you want. And it's all about like just staying on the path, one foot in front of the other, and just being here on this series and reaching out and listening. Maybe this is your first step, maybe you've already done it a whole bunch, but just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. It is so worth it. And I encourage you, and I send you just so much love for being here.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Christina. Thank you. Yeah. And it's, yeah, we have one life, so we have to make the most of it. And if we need someone to help us along the way sometimes, it's totally normal. I think it's really, important to go out there and learn, because if we've come this far and we're still not feeling good in ourselves, then maybe we do need to reach out and ask for help. So thank you so much, Christina. You've been amazing, really fascinating, and you've shared so much really valuable information and support, and I'm sure it will have touched many people, really. It's very powerful, really. So thank you, Christina. I appreciate you, and have an amazing day and the best of luck, and we'll make sure that everybody can reach you.
All right. Thank you all so much. Sending you so much love. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Goodbye, everybody. See you tomorrow.